Next on Investigative Report. Wokeness. How corporations alienate their customer base. 41st and Broadway. A virtual cascading backdrop for product placement through massive lighting and immersement. Multinational corporations from Times Square to Tinseltown have decided to go woke by virtual signaling their customer base regardless of the negative consequences. In this issue of Investigative Report, we bring you the origins of modern-day woke movement, from Billie Eilish to Colin Kaepernick and everyone in between. This new push for environmental, social, and governance of companies or investments seems to be motivated by high investments and not its moniker. In that vein, customers do not have a say in the advertising of products they purchase. They are simply motivated to clash as titans between the right and left of politics, with fans and supporters in between. And now, wokeness. How corporations alienate their customer base. For well over 70 years, left coast filmmakers and New York advertisers have sought to frame fashion and public opinion through the magic of television. But recently this magic has taken on a more dominant form of manipulation through virtue signaling and self-righteous alienating the industry's own customer base. Tinseltown's wokeness has changed the way neighbors see neighbors by promoting divisive public issues that have nothing to do with good theater. But if Hollywood seeks to convince the world public that we are prejudiced or sexist, then they need to look no further than their own front door. Prior to 1940, if you wanted to see an actress like Ethel Waters in her own NBC variety show, you would have to wait 50 years after the first film was put to celluloid in the late 1800s. Only 2 short years after Ethel made her mark on television, Walt began to capitalize on selling a new genre of films based on how people felt about the character. This feeling-based cinematography would be initially accomplished through the movie Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, setting the stage for future woke philosophy. Disney Studios would go on to achieve wealth and fame through its movies and theme parks over a stellar 100-year history. Its most profitable CEO, Robert Iger, would acquire such iconic entities as Marvel and Pixar Pictures before finally turning the Mouse Kingdom over to his replacement, Bob Chapek. Under Bob Chapek's reign, Disney would lose its self-governing status, experience lower than expected box office gross, and enter the world of wokeness with a vengeance. Disney stock would fall to a 9-year low as the corporation focused more on wokeness rather than its in-house concerns. Although Chapek preached diversity and inclusion at every turn, he faced 70,000 union employees who didn't feel included in pushing for wage increases through a new union contract. With wokeness as Disney's navigational rudder, Marvel's Ant-Man would flop at the box office. Streaming Disney Plus titles with the woke agenda would suffer as well. Disney would take a hit from Governor DeSantis for butting into Florida's legislative session. When Governor DeSantis butted back into Disney's business, the company would bring back former CEO Robert Iger in hopes of righting the ship. Iger's biggest challenge beyond canning wokeness titles would be to fill empty theater seats that were the company's bread and butter. While Iger fought to improve Disney's streaming service, pundits from the left and right would second-guess its inclusion barometer. Whether producing well-known movies or branded beer, Bud Light CEO and his advertising executive Alyssa Heinerscheid would relearn an old industry standard. The customer is always right. After using trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney as a spokesperson, Bud Light Corporation would suffer a loss of $27 billion in market value. The company would go on to lose its first-place status among American beers. Bud Light's revenue would fall some $395 million in North America alone as compared to the same period a year ago. 1 year before James Quince became Coca-Cola's CEO, the corporation would choose Selena Gomez as their spokesperson for social media. Ultimately, the Click Queen herself would develop depression concerns surrounding her addiction to social media platforms. Although Coke was becoming fully woke, they were lambasted about a commercial using whites as being racist. This from the company who asked their employees to be less white. The $43 billion Atlanta behemoth would choose sides in Atlanta elections, causing some of its customers to pour Coke out. The PepsiCo Corporation, Coke's chief rival, would be no stranger to the woke movement. The Pepsi Corporation, a 125-year-old entity, would hire Ms. Kendall Jenner as a spokesperson for their online advertisement. In this commercial, we see Kendall giving a soda to a police officer. Her purpose? To achieve peace from police brutality as it pertained to the Black Lives Matter movement. But even Pepsi would be forced to pull this ad for trivializing interactions between police and members of the black community. Maybe Pepsi will be best served by sticking to its iconic, lighter-feeling commercials, or by addressing its unionized employees striking over health care cost. Gillette, a 120-year-old shaving company, would take the Wokeness prize by shooting itself in the foot at the height of the #MeToo campaign. The $8 billion company would achieve this by greenlighting an ad by Carolyn Tostad, an executive for the company. The ad's focus? Bullying, the MeToo campaign, and toxic masculinity. In other words, a men's razor company was painting its customers as the reason for all of society's ills. These ads didn't go over with loyal users of Gillette products, which prompted a boycott. Gillette will lose billions of dollars as well as a drop in their stock market value before banning this style of ad. As men began to turn away from Gillette, they began using other small companies' products, and others decided to ditch the razor and grow beards in protest.
Don't ask questions, just ride with me. Just ride. I ain't got that much.
The next company that would talk the woke but not walk the woke would be the Nike Corporation. Nike would employ Colin Kaepernick in his 30th anniversary of the Just Do It ad campaign, despite the fact that he was blackballed by the San Francisco 49ers. Having a kneeling quarterback as spokesperson would anger Nike customers enough that they would torch their shoes on social media. This counterproductive move on the corporation's part also caused the stock price to drop. The shoe giant never wanted to shy away from controversial figures, would anger some of his female customers by using transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney to promote his new leggings and fitness tops. During the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, Nike would pledge $40 million in support of a nearly insolvent group. It seems Nike has long insisted on equality campaigns featuring sports figures, such as Ibtihaj Muhammad, a Muslim-American fencer, and transgender triathlete Chris Mosier. They can't say the same for their employees. To date, Nike has been accused of using sweatshops and worker abuse to produce footwear and apparel in East Asia, India, and Pakistan, but never equality. Target, a $51 billion corporation, benefited from a decade of wokeness with the LGBTQ+ community before being criticized for carrying its pride gear. Wokeness, it seems, is not fighting for rights as much as it is a huge profit for businesses or political votes. Wokeness, as defined by Oxford's dictionary, is the quality of being alert to and concerned about social injustice and discrimination. The word woke itself originated from the black community as a slang and gained more widespread use beginning in 2014 as part of the Black Lives Matter movement. But woke was never meant to be the property of businesses or government to profit off of, which I believe makes it dangerous for us all. Target, like other U.S. corporations, knew that the LGBTQ+ community was worth $1.4 trillion and that the black community spends approximately $900 billion annually, and they wanted to cash in on it. Companies like Target fully understand this, which is why they claim to represent the woke agenda. But if they represented the LGBTQ+ community as they say they did, then why would Target remove Pride clothing after taking a $10 billion hit to the stock market value in 10 days? Target, like so many other multinational companies, had their own internal problems they needed to address. Target would agree to pay a $3.7 million settlement that alleged the company's criminal background check process was biased against thousands of Latinos and African Americans seeking jobs with the retailer. Target's woke signaling would pale in comparison to the way the public would feign compassion for this young black man. You may not recognize him as a teen, but you will never forget him as an adult. Meet Mr. George Floyd. What happened to George Floyd was a tragedy of epic proportions, which would propel him into fame more in death than ever in life. Floyd's post-mortem fame was primarily aided by one high-priced attorney and higher-priced news pundit who show up at every newsworthy death of a minority person. Thousands would turn out to protest what happened to Floyd, not because they knew him personally, or actually because they cared for the black community, but because they were fed up with the government. You see, George Floyd was killed during the height of the COVID pandemic, when everyone was locked out of their jobs. George Floyd's death at the hands of Derek Chauvin and three other officers presented political parties a chance to trip over themselves, virtue signaling. News agencies with their best chance at getting buyers on the same sheet of music. To be truthful, I knew full well that once the pandemic had passed, none of these folks would ever return to the streets again. Why? Because rarely do people risk losing their jobs to protest peacefully or otherwise for someone they don't know. There have been many black men that have been killed in a similar fashion since George, but have not drawn an audience. The problem that retailers and the media had with these rather large protests is they believed that these people actually cared as a multiracial connected. And in retail, if you can get an entire group of people through bandwagon advertising, you can sell them just about anything. The Black Lives Matter movement brought in $90 million to its coffers in 2020 alone, but none of these funds will benefit victims' families that money was raised around. Starbucks. Long since a leader in any new wokeness foray, the company will focus on covering gender affirmation surgery for its trans employees. Starbucks would expand its policy to include a host of procedures, such as breast reduction or augmentation surgery, facial feminization, hair transplants, and much more. Now, what Starbucks never intended to cover under its wokeness umbrella was to allow what really matters to its hourly employees. Starbucks employees long wanted to unionize because they were fighting for better treatment, striving for fair scheduling practices, and freedom from unfair dismissal and discipline by managers. Finally, employees sought to use collective bargaining to get higher pay, but never high up on their list was gender affirmation surgery, which cost much more than a mere hourly increase. Calvin Klein, an iconic mainstay once featured Brooke Shields in a pair of tight-fitting jeans, has drunken from the woke Kool-Aid. Today, Klein has decided to move its designs 180 degrees in the opposite direction. In a recent ad, they engaged Billie Eilish as spokesperson for its baggy casual chic line. In this frame, Eilish boasts how she wears baggy clothing so that people don't see her true body image, whether she has a big butt or no butt at all. This line is most likely a throwback for body positivity movement, as well as Eilish reference her past depression and self-harm moments. Body dysmorphia and trans-influencing seems to be the direction that Calvin Klein is moving, as when it featured Babby Cortram, who claims to be a woman. Cortram can be seen with a beard and chest hair while wearing a Calvin Klein bra and underwear. Babby is a trans man who has not yet had top surgery. Babby's bra in an ad reads, "This is love," along with exposed underwear and the Calvin Klein Pride 2022 campaign. Apple, founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, became a global giant in the area of personal computing. But lately, the tech giant cannot do without dipping its toe into the woke pool of progressivism. Apple Corp would engage the public in an astounding virtual signaling commercial using Octavia Spencer as Mother Nature. Unfortunately, this stance will come back to bite them in the butt. The ad would boast how Apple reached carbon neutrality in April 2020, meaning its facilities, corporate emissions, and corporate travel don't contribute to carbon on the planet. Apple insists that it uses 100% renewable electricity and has been investing in restoration of forests, wetlands, and grasslands to remove carbon naturally. What Apple didn't say in that same advert is that it was participating in one of the worst land-destructive mineral grabs in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Without cobalt, which chiefly exists in the Congo, Apple would have to shut its doors tomorrow. Cobalt is dangerously mined material used to make lithium batteries that power a majority of Apple's laptops, cell phones, and watches. Although these batteries can be a dangerous source of combustibility, they are far more deadly to the lives of the people who mine that precious mineral. In a news article written by The Guardian, we find that Apple and a handful of other tech giants were named in a lawsuit over Congolese child cobalt mining deaths. This landmark legal case has been launched against the world's largest tech companies by Congolese families who say their children were killed or maimed while mining for cobalt. Cobalt used to power smartphones, laptops, and electric cars. In another nod to virtual signaling, Cobalt pledged a whopping $100 million for a new racial equity and justice initiative that will challenge the systemic barriers to opportunity and dignity that exist for communities of color, and particularly for Black communities in America. This was according to Apple CEO Tim Cook. I wonder if Mr. Cook understood that the entire Democratic Republic of Congo, where cobalt is chiefly mined, is a Black nation. Alaska Airlines and a few other major corporations would help bring us to an end of this investigative report. You see, the following corporations decided just as soon as the Supreme Court ended a woman's right to choose that they would fund that right to choose if she needed to cross state lines. That's right. For the first time in history, major corporations would help a woman pay for a right to choose. In each case, most of these major corporations would give her up to $4,000 or $5,000 to cross state line to continue that choice. These are the very same corporations that underfund their employees' pensions, they underfund their employees' medical, and their payroll. While General Motors themselves each year faces a strike by the United Auto Workers. Even this year, General Motors is being striked by the UAW. Most major corporations choose the grandest of hotels and they set up meetings. They set up meetings to decide how they can use what Walt Disney once had. How can they make you, the customer, fall in love with the product? And if it takes a woke agenda to do that, they will do that. Make no mistake, corporations that have problems with their employees, problems with their pensions, problems with retirement, problems with medical, do not care about the woke agenda as much as they care about you buying the product. Once they have the sales pitch, they take the video, they go through the motions. So you're in front of the TV and you watch it. So all of that woke agenda was just to get you to buy a product at the checkout stand. For Investigative Report, this is Charles Rivers. Until we see you again next time, thank you for watching.